Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, so pleased to have back in the studio. It's been a while. It's our friend Linda Lattimore. She is the founder of Solutionaires Academy. We're going to talk about her second book, Great-itude, Overcoming Loneliness in a Disconnected World and everything in between. How you doing there, Linda?
I'm fabulous. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I always say, how are your holidays? And then I got to remember, we're almost out of January. I got to quit saying that. But I'll ask anyway, how were your holidays?
Well, they were great. But I mean, Valentine's is coming up, and I'm sure we have all kinds of other holidays.
We have some holidays coming up. That is absolutely right. Did you travel at all or stay in town?
I stayed in town for the first time in a few years.
Really?
I sure did. I have kids that are living out on one of the bases on Coronado, and I stayed close to home.
Nice. Always love to see folks. Thanks for the civilian or in the military?
So my son-in-law is a Navy doctor.
Oh.
My daughter is a marriage and family counselor, and they have 3 little bitties.
Oh, my goodness. All right. I get that. So you get a chance to see them quite a bit, I take it?
I do. My other one lives up in Victoria in British Columbia and with her 2 kids and husband, but so not so much.
One of the greatest cities. My mom was a Canuck, and so I've always threatened to get my dual citizenship and then live in Victoria. So
I tell you what, it's stunning up there, isn't it?
Butchart Gardens, the Inner Harbor. I've been there probably about 8 times. I love it.
I feel so blessed. Sometimes I think about how beautiful San Diego is, and then I get to go spend time in Victoria, and I think, oh my gosh, how did I get to be so lucky?
You get 2 places to do that. Talk a little about the Solutionaires, but we're going to spend most of the time on the book. But what's the Solutionaires? What's the mission? How long have you been doing it?
So the first book that I wrote was called Solutionaries, You Are the Answer. Mm-hmm. And the way that came about was I had a ton of people who were reaching out to me who were unhappy. This was actually pre-pandemic. Who were unhappy with the work that they were doing. They were wishing that they could find work that was more heart-centric, that made them feel, like it was meaningful. But, they had to make money. They couldn't just go volunteer. So I started putting a large group of primarily women that first time through a mastermind, helping them figure out exactly what that would be. And at the end of it, they all kind of had an idea where they wanted to go, what they wanted to do. And if they didn't have a company in mind, I taught them how to create a social enterprise, a social impact business. And that morphed into all kinds of other things. And so I've been in what used to be called the CSR, now called ESG, primarily for a lot of years.
Yeah, it's amazing how things shift and names change, maybe concepts not change, or the ultimate goal doesn't change. But if you don't keep on top of it, I thought it used to be called X. Well, it's called Y now, and then it'll be called something else in about 2 weeks in this area. Talk about your book. It's your second book. Great-itude, Overcoming Loneliness in a Disconnected World, and boy, are we. When did you decide to do this? Was it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a year ago? When was the epiphany?
I have to tell you, there wasn't even an epiphany. It's kind of like the first book. I was doing something for myself. I was waking up feeling kind of lonely myself last January, so it's only been a year. And writing down every night little things that I did to add value to the world because I was feeling a little bit of age discrimination, of feeling a little lonely from relocating. And I thought, well, if I can just write down some ways that I feel like I add value, then I'll feel more valuable and I'll feel better about things. I mentioned that to a couple of friends who immediately jumped on it and said they wish they had a book like that. Would I please write it? Which I hadn't thought about writing another book again, but I started putting it together. And long story short, it ended up being a 52-week journey through a variety of topics, from mentoring to empathy, you name it. And then in each one, there's 10 ways that you can actually go do that. Because it's easy to tell someone to be more compassionate, but sometimes they're not exactly sure how.
Right. So you have those solutions in there, and so a little how-tos, at least for you in this area. How'd you come up with those topics?
Well, it wasn't so much about solving global poverty. I mean, I do have a nonprofit that's done microfinance projects around the world for 20 years. But in this case, it was more about being stealth. I really wasn't looking for anyone else to pat me on the back and tell me I was doing great things. I internally wanted to feel good about what I was doing. So maybe it was just lending the guy downstairs some quarters because he didn't have any for his dryer that day. Maybe that was the thing that I did that added value to someone's life.
Right.
It wasn't about solving, like I say, global poverty or something. And then I would think, it sort of evolved. I would think, what did I do today? Did I exhibit compassion? Did I exhibit empathy? Did I help a military family today? That was top of my mind, looking at my own family and what some of these kids deal with on the bases.
So how would you define loneliness? I mean, I'm sure it's personal to everybody, to say the least, but you make it no, 50% of people suffer loneliness or are lonely. How does one define that?
I think it's really tough, Drew, and you're exactly right about the 50% because I don't think I ever could have imagined that within 6 months that I started this book that the Surgeon General would put a report out saying that, half of our nation is suffering from loneliness. It is really probably one of the top mental health crises in the world. It is the number one pandemic he considers right now. And the more research I did, it was very pervasive because it's a global issue. The Londoners have actually been pouring money into this for many, many years. They even have something like an Institute of Loneliness or something like that where they're trying to deal with it. But it's such a sense inside of each person, right? And you can walk into a room and you can smile and you can have a million things to do, but you may still have a sense of disconnection and of feeling lonely and to some extent not included or isolated I think it's different for maybe our teens, our older people who are unemployed. There's people who are in a cruddy marriage. That can be the loneliest.
100%. Well, you brought up something really interesting. We're chatting with Linda Lattimore. She is the founder of I always mispronounce it in here. Solutionaires, is that right?
Solutionaires, kind of like a passionary or a missionary. It's a solutionary.
And the author of her second book, Great-itude, Overcoming Loneliness in a Disconnected World. And with that, you hit the nail on the head. You could be in a room with a whole bunch of people and maybe in that moment in time, you're not lonely because you're interacting with them, and then you go home, and man, did you even know you were in a room because you feel lonely for whatever reason. We all know that's one of the top things that seniors go through that have lost their loved ones, or to your point, if you're not in the greatest of marriages, you can be just as lonely with the person sitting next to you in that aspect of it. So it's certainly within. Does the Surgeon General, I'd love to get a hold of that report, maybe I'll Google it and that aspect of it. Is any of this tied to social media? We want to blame social media for everything in this world, sunspots and all that stuff. What do they equate some of the symptoms? Or the reasons why?
Well, I do think social media is one.
Yeah.
I mean, face it, how many of us have gone onto our Facebook, our Instagram, and seen all these pictures of friends and families who have the most fabulous days? Right. And maybe we're having a terrible day, and so we just feel left out. Well, the truth is none of us like to post, horrible pictures on, and we always post happy pictures or adventures and everything else. But that's not actually a true snapshot of what's really going on in our life. It's just a small piece.
Right, exactly. You brought up mental health. We've had a lot of guests on a Spotlight show recently about mental health. There's no question that it's at a crisis proportion, to say the least, and for so many different reasons, especially with our youth. They have never been more stressed ever. And since people were walking upright, I should say, in this area of it. So the book that you just came out with, is that geared to a certain age group? Or is it anyone could really glean something from this?
Well, I think really anyone can. And I always hate to be overly broad in anything that I write, right? You'd like to think it's for a particular market. But the more people I've talked to, this feeling is so pervasive. I mean, we've been ordering our groceries online. We order our clothes online. We're not finding those places where we used to go to have contact with other human beings anymore. Our remote workers are suffering a lot less now. I mean, they want to be remote. I mean, it's really great not to have to go into the office every day. You know, I spent 40 years as corporate counsel for a lot of companies, having to go in by 7 a.m. and get out in the evening. They like this idea. On the flip side, they're having a sense of loneliness and disconnection because they're only using Zoom calls to talk to their coworkers. So we're finding that they're actually going out and looking for places to connect outside of work, just so they can have that sense of, it could be that they're going to a co-working space, or they're going to a coffee shop, or they're trying to find volunteer activities to get engaged in.
Right. And it's something you bring up volunteer activities. As you know, most of the shows I've been doing for 18 years focus on nonprofits, a lot of them on for-profits too as well. But you know, you talk about volunteering, and it always amazes me that people think, well, how can I benefit someone by volunteering? And then, of course, I go into my 15-hour diatribe on, of course you can. And there's no such thing as too little of time to volunteer, because any nonprofit will take you for any time. 5 seconds will work today, and then maybe it's an hour a week, and maybe 2 hours a week, and so forth. And to the satisfaction, as you pointed out earlier, of helping somebody or something. And all of us have within us to do that. And I imagine, Linda, talk about this, that when you now find a place to volunteer, and hopefully it's something that you're passionate about, that never hurts to do that, you get pretty good instant gratification when you do that, do you not?
Yeah. And I think probably what happens when you have those conversations with people is that they're thinking of volunteering at large organizations, so it becomes task-driven for them, and they already have so many tasks with their own job, right? So really, I've provided literally 520 ways in here, because there's 10 for each week, 52 weeks, right, that someone can connect with another human being. Right. But it could actually be, you know, working with a neighbor on something, working with a child on something, anything where you are doing something for someone else is going to connect your heart to that feeling of gratification, which will then help stem this tide of loneliness.
Right. Exactly. We're chatting with Linda Lattimore. She is the founder of Solutionaires Academy, also the author of her second book of Great-itude, Overcoming Loneliness in a Disconnected World. We come back from break. Linda, let's talk more about this and the loneliness aspect of it. You offer some great solutions in your book as well. But maybe there's some advice you have for parents to keep an eye. I'm sure this can happen in the family as well. We all know that as parents, please pay attention to what your kids are doing. That sounds the most obvious thing in the world, but like humans, we don't always do the obvious thing in the world. And then always set time in the second part of our spotlight shows, Linda, to what our listeners can do to support you. Obviously, buying the book would be a good one, and so forth, or sharing ideas. When we return, another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union and these beautiful Mission Fed studios in Scripps Ranch, and Mission Fed for 6 decades of doing great things for San Diego County residents. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are back with another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. So pleased to have back in the studio with this Linda Lattimore. She is the founder of Solutionaires and the author of her second book, Great-itude, Overcoming Loneliness in a Disconnected World. And it's so funny with that word, sort of in a way, sort of a paradox in a disconnected world. Well, in some ways, we've been more connected than we ever have because of social media, but are we really connected? So I love the fact that I used the juxtaposition of those words. Mm-hmm. Was that meaningful to do it that way?
Well, it's interesting because when I started this book, like I say, I was sort of calling it my value journal. I was just trying to think of ways that I could add value, right? It wasn't until I woke up one day and went, oh, this is actually about loneliness, and reconnecting to stop that. And that's right about the time that the reports were starting to come out on loneliness.
Right. I just love the fact disconnected world, when in essence, we are in a way somewhat more connected than ever, only because of the internet. But in essence, because of that or social media, we actually are disconnected. We're not doing stuff face to face.
No, we're not. We're not connected in our humanity. I think we're connected 100%. In terms of visually, we can see what's going on, but we don't even know anymore if it's the truth, it's not the truth. Everyone is just kind of
so true.
Very isolated right now because there's so much chatter out there and we don't even know if it's real.
You're so spot on. I'm so glad you brought this up. We could probably talk about this for another 7 weeks and not even get close to this. Obviously it scares the heck. I was reading a great article in the UT. I'm not sure if it was an AP article or not. I was talking to some experts in the world of AI, especially that ties to politics and elections. And this expert was scared to death with AI and what it's going to do in the 2024 election, because you don't know who is saying what. And with everything they've done, was that really Biden saying that? It's funny, it doesn't look like that, but whatever the case may be. And it's just the fact that you're right. Am I really getting the right answer from that person? Is the person telling the truth? Sometimes when you face to face, you can sort of tell all these things because you can read some of the nonverbal communication. But when we're not doing that, that's a tough nut to do. Correct?
That's why this is all about actually meeting one-on-one.
Yes.
Whether it's parents doing things with their kids or grandparents doing things, or the neighbor next door, or the person you'd like to get to know better, or
that's
something.
Right.
It's actually physically getting up out of your chair and going there, not just talking to them over a Zoom meeting, but having that one-on-one intimate conversation with this person. We cannot get back to finding each other until we truly go find each other.
I couldn't agree more. I could absolutely not agree more on this. It was so funny. I always think about this when I watch every year during Christmas time. It's a Wonderful Life. And you always see everyone walking on the streets and all that business. Back in the day, we did more of that. No, obviously there's still some cities, New York and Chicago, I'm sure that still goes on. I don't see so much of that in San Diego, where the little suburbia and all that aspect of it. But that being said, and then you run into people and you wave and you chat, right, and you do all this. Maybe a little bit of a sidebar here, but I got to tell you something was really interesting, for me at least. I grew up in Southern California, but I spent a year at the University of Mississippi doing some graduate work in journalism. So I had some friends that went there. When I was walking to class, someone would be driving down the street and they'd wave, and I'd sit there and go, I'd look over my shoulder, who are you waving to? Well, I found out very quickly, and it's not too different in a lot of places in the South, but especially at the University of Mississippi, they're just saying hi to you. And they wave and they say hi, whether you know them or not. I got so ingrained in it, and it just makes you feel good that someone's saying, and then you get used to it after a while. No, they just saying hi.
That's
and
right.
Whether you have a conversation or not. I get back to San Diego State because I was there for a year, and I'm doing the same thing here, and they give me the worst looks about, I don't know you. And I go, oh, I'm back here. That's right. But that little action of waving,
it's that Southern hospitality thing that you don't see too much when you get outside of the South. I know I was born in Texas, and so, Texans are pretty friendly people. And it is hard. It is hard when you get out of there because, at least if someone moves into the neighborhood, everyone's got a casserole at their house and stuff like that, It's
so funny you're saying we'd have a new person moved into our neighborhood, and been there since we were the first house on the street. And so I introduced myself, and they, okay, what's he going to say? No, welcome. I'm glad you're here. And they just, what? Whatever you need, let us know, and welcome you and all that. But like back in the old days, like you said, the casserole deal and all that aspect of it. We're chatting with Linda Lattimore. She is the founder of Solutionaires and Academy, and also the author of Great-itude, Overcoming Loneliness in a Disconnected World. How did they get the book?
You can get onto Amazon. It just was released last week.
Congratulations.
So it's brand new. So it's already up. It's on Goodreads. It's in Barnes & Nobles and all those places you would find a book. My hope is actually that people are already volunteering to do this, which I really love, start Great-itude circles. And
interesting.
Kind of like a book circle, except that during the week, maybe you do that chapter on empathy or courage, and then you come back in and report what you did that week to actually show empathy or courage or help someone else along with the path. And then you take the next chapter. They're only a couple of pages long, but I think that's a really good way to bring people together in terms of reestablishing these connections.
Right. So what can our listeners do? Obviously, buy the book, do a Great-itude circle. What else can they do?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think it's time that we take the steps. If every day we get up and we make an effort to reach out to another human being personally, to invite them to coffee, to go to lunch, to newcomers, not just the friends that you know, but the ones that have, come in or I do go volunteer at the volunteer organizations, but make sure that you find one that really connects with your heart, because the only way you're going to get rid of this loneliness or help another person is if whatever you're doing is something you're inspired by.
Right. Right. Well, when you think about that, and that is the beauty of what you just described is you don't need to have Bill Gates' money to do that. You don't need to sit there and have, but I'm working. Okay, well, there are times when you're not working, right? Last I checked, hopefully you're not working 7/24 for 7 days. Find that aspect where it is. And you're right. There is nothing more gratifying, at least in my world, when you get to meet someone for the first time and you hit it off. Yeah. And, whether you see them again the next week or it's 2 months down the road, you've made that connection. And the beauty of life, I learned that from my parents, bless their hearts. They were just luckiest guy in the history of the world having parents like I did. But they just taught you to be open to meeting people and be as friendly as you can. You can pick and choose who you want to hang out with and all that business, but you just don't know what that connection is going to be. And age means nothing.
And you have to have a sense of, I have to say you have to have courage right now. There's almost like a fine layer of silt sitting on everybody of depression because the world is crazy and they've been stuck in houses. And so somehow you have to step out of that, kind of get your mojo back, step out and take that first step, or you won't get past this.
Right. Well, this is why I consider myself probably one of the lucky, besides the parents I raised, my brother and I get to do this. I've been doing this for 18 years. And so I've interviewed a lot of cool people and learned so much from them. Are you kidding me? And think about that, and now you're connected that way and you can make an introduction to somebody. And so I suggest everyone start your podcast and do a spotlight on the community show in that aspect of it. Any final comments, Linda?
No, I so appreciate you inviting me again, Drew. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, well, the honor is all mine. Linda Lattimore, she is the author of her second book, Great-itude, Overcoming Loneliness in a Disconnected World. Get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Start your own Great-itude circle. And, maybe next time you come back on the air, you say, hey, Drew, we spoke 3 months ago, and man, Great-itude circles are going all over the place.
Boy, I would love that. I would love that. If anyone has any questions, I'm easy to find. Just send me a note at linda@lindalattimore.com. That's my email.
Very good. Always a pleasure to seeing you and wishing you nothing but great success in whatever endeavor you touch your hands on. Thanks so much, Linda.
Thank you.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, doing wonderful things in San Diego for more than 6 decades. We hope you enjoyed the show.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.